Hello, my fiendish freaks. I'm gonna keep it brief because I'm gonna be honest, I'm pretty damn tired today. But goddammit, I am going to record this intro come hell or high water. This video is about Nintendo Switch's last full year, a year I find to be of great interest, that being 2024. This is pre-Nintendo Switch 2 announcement and release. And in it, we got some pretty bizarre little games. Nintendo World Championships, NES Edition, Endless Ocean Luminous, and many more. I have discovered that I have a pretty major soft spot for these strange and obscure Nintendo series, hence my obsession with Box Boy. 2024 actually had quite a few of those. Not all of them were good. Quite a range in quality. We got some 6 out of 10s, some 7 out of 10s, but in there we got some diamonds in the rough, and we're gonna try and find them with this video. So let's look back at Nintendo Switch's wacky final full year. Hey everyone, it's time to discuss Nintendo's wackiest year possibly ever, 2024. Pretty damn strange year. This was the final full year of the Nintendo Switch 1 system. The Switch 2 had yet to be released, hell, yet to even be announced. It leaked plenty at the end of the year, but it was not officially revealed until 2025. As such, the only games we got this year were for the Nintendo Switch 1, and many of Nintendo's main series and studios did not actually release new games in this time frame, and we were left with smaller, stranger games than perhaps we are used to getting. There were quite a few remakes and remasters, spin-offs, and just general oddities. I'd like to take some time to go over some of these games and my thoughts on them, because some of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch were released in this year. Some really fascinating stuff, as well as some of my probably least favorite Switch games. Quite a range in quality and my opinion here, so it'll be interesting to discuss that. I'm going to be ranking the games in this list by their weirdness and wackiness. The first games will be the most normal, and we will get progressively stranger from there. It's not a ranking of quality, just how freakish they are. Splatoon 3 Side Order. This was a very solid roguelike DLC for Splatoon 3, a game I don't care that much about, if I'm being honest. It is basically more of the same from Splatoon 2, better in some ways certainly, but not the most exciting release. I do hope that Splatoon can reinvent itself a bit in future entries. Maybe we'll get a bit more of that with the Splatoon Raiders spin-off game set to release at some point on the Switch 2. The main core gameplay is starting to feel a little bit stale. Not that I don't still enjoy it, but it's not as exciting as it was when Splatoon 1 first released in 2015. So this DLC does kind of go alongside that in that it's not the most exciting thing ever, but it does bring some new elements to the table that I did appreciate. Having a roguelike mode for Splatoon does make a lot of sense, and it does feature a lot of novel new elements like new enemies, and it has a variety of different power-ups to collect. This mode didn't occupy too much of my time or attention, but I did enjoy it while it lasted. I wouldn't say it's as good as Octo Expansion from Splatoon 2, but I did still really like it. I just hope that Splatoon can evolve a bit more with the next entry, Super Mario Party Jamboree. It's a Mario Party. There's 5 other ways to play that on Switch. If you want another, here it is. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. There's some revisionist history out there that this game was never good. I'm here to dispute that. I'm a massive Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon defender. That's what it was originally called on the 3DS. The name has been made consistent across regions for this HD edition, which was done by the developers of Twilight Princess HD, and they did a bang-up job, I would say. This is a very solid version of Luigi's Mansion 2. It's missing 1 or 2 things from the 3DS original. Some visual effects aren't present, like the transparency on the balloons, I believe, didn't make it to the Switch version, but it does look very good. It's a really solid remaster. With that said, being sold at $60 is a bit of a tall order, which is why I waited to get it at a discount for a, well, what region was it? I got the Middle East and Southeast Asia version of the game for pretty heavy discount. I believe it was about $40. And for that price, I think that's reasonable enough. There's quite a lot of content to enjoy. You get the multiple mansions and the fairly fully featured online multiplayer mode, which is pretty underrated. It's aged really well, and this is a really good version of it. Hard to say it's the definitive version as it lacks the 3D feature from the original, but it is still really good and worth checking out, even if the asking price for it is definitely too high. Mario vs. Donkey Kong. This is a really well done full remake of the GBA original by Nintendo Software Technology, which is the Nintendo development studio based in North America. They've done a lot of good work on the Nintendo Switch, specifically with the 99 series of games. They are the main developer for that. They also did the Captain Toad port for 3DS and Switch. So they're a really high quality studio at this point, and the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake is another feather in their cap. I think it looks really amazing. The visuals are great. The redone music is as well. It has some new levels and content, which is really great. Some new co-op. The gameplay has aged great and is really snappy and satisfying. This is another one that you could argue was priced too high at $50. Not quite a full premium $60, but still pretty darn high. With that said, it's a great time. I'd recommend checking it out. Just a really solid game. Mario and Luigi Brothership. Full disclosure here, I have only made it about 9 hours into this game before I had to return it to my local public library. So based on the experience I have had with it, it had really great combat and music. It does seem, from what I've seen online, that this game is pretty long, so not sure when I will get around to finishing it, but I did enjoy the time I did spend on it. It being a longer game is potentially a detractor here. One of the charms of Superstar Saga, which is the only other Mario and Luigi RPG I've played, is the breezy length. So I'm not sure that it was the right play to make such a sprawling adventure here. The story also wasn't particularly engaging. It had some solid jokes, but nothing quite as good as was in the original. The visuals are nice, but they're not exactly AAA level. It's lacking a little bit of visual polish, though it does look really good. I played it on Switch 2, so I didn't notice any performance issues. I believe it was reported as having those on Switch 1, but not anything I experienced with it on Switch 2. The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. This is a really good return to form for the 2D Legend of Zelda games. We haven't had a new entry in the 2D Zelda series since A Link Between Worlds on 3DS. There is the remake of Link's Awakening on Switch, but that's of course a remake of that original Game Boy game, so not the same thing as a full new entry. Like the Link's Awakening remake, this was developed by Grezzo and has a very similar visual presentation. I did play through this on Switch 1, again from the public library. I did manage to finish it within the 2-week window. This was also before the Switch 2 had come out, so I was playing it on Switch 1 without any of the performance enhancements added in the Switch 2 free update. It's got this toy-like style, yet again, returning from Link's Awakening, which looks really good. The frame rate does suffer though. It definitely does not hit 60 a lot of the time, which was unfortunate, but if you got a Switch 2, that problem is now, as far as I'm aware, solved, so that's great. I like that they gave Zelda a specialized move set, which allowed for unique puzzles. This isn't just Link with a Zelda coat of paint on him. Zelda herself feels like a unique character with a unique moveset and a unique style of solving puzzles and combating enemies, so I really appreciated that. I think that's a much more interesting concept than just having her play exactly like Link does. I always imagined if we ever got a game with Zelda as the primary playable character, they would give her a unique moveset. It was a bit surprising to get a game with Zelda at the forefront, but the execution of it is very good. It's quite a high quality Zelda game. Definitely not my favorite, but it's got a lot to offer and it feels very unique in the series. And honestly, it's just good to get a new 2D Zelda after so long, and I hope it leads to more entries in 2D Zelda. Honestly, I prefer it in general over 3D Zelda. I've enjoyed the open world entries like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but other than that, I'm not really that much of a 3D Zelda guy. So seeing the 2D Zelda series continue, which is generally my preferred form of the series, was really great, and I hope to see more from this team. We have our next princess game with Princess Peach Showtime. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I did review this game on the channel soon after it came out and compared it to Super Princess Peach. I think one of the pitfalls you run into when reviewing a game close to when it's released is that you don't always have time to let it marinate in your head to form a full opinion. And I think I did encounter that with this game because I look back on my review of it and comparing it to Super Princess Peach, and I gotta be honest, I think SPP is a lot better in most ways than Princess Peach Showtime. This comes to us from the developers Good Feel, who have done some really great work in the past. I gotta be honest, I think this is probably Good Feel's weakest Nintendo game. I love Kirby's Epic Yarn a lot more. Yoshi's Woolly World as well is also a banger. Crafted World is also quite enjoyable. And then their recent non-Nintendo game Backaroo is really fun. A great 3D action platformer that I'd highly recommend, especially over Princess Peach Showtime, which just feels a little basic. Looking back on it, there's just not much about it that's very memorable. It's really mostly just got these set pieces going for it. The theming's pretty good. It's set at a playhouse, so you get all sorts of different plays, but it just doesn't stick with you. I really haven't gone back to it much at all and just don't have much of a desire to. So this one's a bit of a miss for me. It's a shame it wasn't better, especially as the first Peach game in a long time. People have valid reasons to not like Super Princess Peach, but as a gameplay experience, in terms of its presentation and charm, I prefer that, frankly. That was not the conclusion I came to in that original video, but clearly my mind has been changed over time, letting the two games sit in my head and reassessing them now. Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. A unique title. It takes various NES games and splits them up into short time-based challenges. It's a really fun way to experience these older games that you may not have played much of. I certainly hadn't played that much of most of these games, so it was a way for me to play some of this game content in a form that's more approachable than booting up the NES Nintendo app and starting from the start. This gives you short but enjoyable challenges that feature content from across these different games. I did find it a lot of fun to chase the high scores. I managed to get an A rank in all of these stages, which was pretty satisfying. There's a weekly online multiplayer competition that I did play a lot of. I played that for many weeks after the game came out and quite enjoyed it. You compete against the ghost data of other online players. I just found it a lot of fun. It was a pretty unique way of playing these NES games. It does have local multiplayer as well. Didn't really play that, but cool that it was there. This game is priced, I'd say, close to fairly. Probably still a little high at $30 for the digital version, which isn't terrible by Nintendo pricing standards. It's probably still a bit too high given the amount of content it has on offer, but it does have those multiplayer features which give it some longevity. The game gets compared to NES Remix quite a lot, and I can't really comment on that as I have not played any version of NES Remix, which is a game I think looks really cool. It's a great idea to combine the different NES game elements. This game doesn't do that. It's just these short sections from these different games repackaged as challenges, so it's not anything that ambitious. I can't comment on that comparison as I haven't played that game. And I gotta be honest, this game, I feel like it got a bit disparaged when it released, but I really enjoyed it. I got the physical version if I'm being honest, but you know, it's just kind of cool. And I am nothing if not someone who likes cool little trinkets. While we're here, let's look at the collector's edition for the NES edition of Nintendo World Championships. Yes. Okay, their box. Nice box. In it we have big Nintendo plastic, Nintendo branded plastic, and the silly golden NES cartridge. I mean, it's kind of neat though. Kind of a little bit sick at least. And it slots right onto that stupid goddamn thing. And then we got this thing. Is this the game? Here we go. Oh, these are like little cards for the NES games. Let's see if we can. There we go. Oh, that's kind of cool though. It's like the Kirby one. Did I take the game box out? Maybe I did. Yeah, I think I took the game box out. I got it somewhere else. We got the pins. These pins are kind of a little bit slick, kind of golden and such. Only so much you can say about this kind of stuff. The all-important game cartridge. I guess it's in the box. I think the cartridge is stored elsewhere at the moment, but you got some nice internal stuff. I don't know. I like having physical versions of games. Who doesn't like that? I did go for that, and don't regret it one bit. It's a really quality time, and you know, maybe if you see it on sale, maybe check it out. It's more fun than it gets credit for, I'll say that. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. This is an amazing remake of the original GameCube game. I played it 1 year before the Switch version was announced and released, so I did finally get around to playing that GameCube game before the Switch game came out. I'm glad I did because it's amazing, and it gave me a comparison point for the remake, which does improve it, I would say, in most vectors. Visually, it has a more striking style. The original games does still look great, but the more detailed style gone for in the Switch version looks really appealing, I gotta be honest. It's a nice looking game. Probably more importantly is the quality of life additions that have been made here. The original game does have some really irritating backtracking at certain segments. If you played it, you probably know what I'm talking about. And those issues have been really ironed out in this Switch version, and I really appreciated those changes. Improved my overall experience with the game, honestly, because those weak points did get irritating playing the GameCube original. There's been a few minor changes to the script of the game, nothing really that groundbreaking, but I think they're good. The biggest trade-off you get with the Switch version is that it's running at 30 frames per second, which is a shame as the original was at 60. So that's actually a pretty major detractor, and it's a shame that the game hasn't been updated for Switch 2 to run at 60. I think that likely should have been a priority to get that running at a full 60. You do have a lot of timing-based attacks in Paper Mario. Honestly, just for accessibility to have the game available to a wide audience, it was really awesome to see this come out. Not much in the way of fully new content, but a great way to experience the game if you haven't, or if you're looking to play it with a fresh coat of paint. You could make the argument that it's the best Mario RPG. I feel like that's kind of the consensus. I'm pretty close there. It's quite close to the original Paper Mario and then Super Mario RPG in my mind. It's a must play. Pretty strange that they put this and Brothership out in the same year, and then also just 1 year after the Super Mario RPG remake. I think that might have been overkill. Probably a few too many Mario RPGs for a span of 1 year. I did skip Brothership at launch and then just recently played through some of it. That might have been too much for most people, too much Mario RPG for that time span. Another Code Recollection. This is my first experience with the Another Code series. I think it might have had a different name in the US or Europe or something, but it was a series of 2 games, one game on the DS, another game on the Wii, and this title compiles them together for a from the ground up remake, which is commendable. I think it's cool when that happens. This is a series I really don't think I'd even heard of before it was announced, so I was definitely interested in checking it out, and so I did. And I gotta be honest, I feel like a fair amount of praise has been placed on these games by some fans, which is fair enough, but for me, I gotta be honest, I think it's just okay. The visuals are kind of dated looking. Not the prettiest looking game from a visuals perspective a lot of the time. And the gameplay included is very light. There's a few puzzles sprinkled throughout, mostly at the beginning of the game for some reason, and then you kinda just don't see him again, and it's mostly just a walking around, talking to people type experience. The saving grace might have been the story, but it just doesn't really have that much going for it. I didn't find the characters very interesting. The voice acting is fine, but not exceptional. None of the plot points really hit home. This is probably one of the more damning things I can say is that the game, while quite short, didn't feel short. It was a bit of a slog to get through. That's a problem. That's not something you want to have happen when playing a game. This game does seem to have an audience, but I just don't think it's me. If you're looking for a really good story-based experience by this same developer, try out Dear Me, I Was on the Switch 2. It's a Switch 2 exclusive for the moment. Not entirely sure why that is, but fair enough. That game has a story that's about 10 times as impactful as Another Code, while being delivered in a much smaller, shorter package. I would say that game is far more worth experiencing than another code Recollection. It's not bad, but I think for a story-based game that doesn't have that much gameplay, I'm gonna need a little bit more to go off, especially because this was a full-priced release. Granted, it does compile those two games, and they're from the ground-up remakes, but I just didn't get much out of it, if I'm being honest. Not really for me. A game that was for me, though, was Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club. My love for this game has only grown stronger since finishing it. It's been about a year since it released. It's so much better than those original Famicom Detective Club remakes, which were already really high quality. It had a very strange marketing campaign. Not sure that really worked to deliver it to a wider audience, but it was interesting nonetheless. I really want more people to play this game. It's one of the most impactful video game stories ever. I have minor nitpicks, but they don't really matter in the face of what it accomplishes. Check it out ASAP if you can. Released at $50, and that's just something I have to address with a lot of these games, is that they are priced pretty high compared to what you get from a non-Nintendo game, and that's just the state of it. That's continued to happen with Switch 2. I wish I didn't have to bring it up, but I think it's a point worth discussion. I'd say also try and avoid Nintendo's trailers for it on their YouTube channel if you intend to play the game. They released a trailer on their channel in January, which I think does spoil some of the ending, so try not to watch that if you can. I also gotta say, that January trailer got a lot of undue hate because it wasn't a Switch 2 trailer, and everyone online was chomping at the bit for his Switch 2 announcement, and so that Emio trailer got a lot of undue hatred hurled at it. There was this annoying kind of meme in the Nintendo Switch 2 subreddit about water buffaloes that kind of came from nothing, and honestly, I gotta be honest, it's pretty annoying. And that was just spammed in the comments, and it's like, alright guys, just chill the hell out. Alright, Emio can be good, and you can also want the Switch 2. These two things can coexist in the same reality. Yeah, that was kind of irritating. As a mega fan of Emio the Smiling Man, one of my favorite story-based games. Very few have had the impact that this one did. Ones that I can think of in recent memory are Expedition 33 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. If you know anything about those games, it's that they've got some pretty tragic elements. Emio the Smiling Man does go alongside that. So if you're going into this game, know that it gets pretty heavy. A lot of the game is a very enjoyable procedural murder mystery. Near the ending though, it gets pretty dismal, but so impactful. Definitely my favorite game that I'm talking about on this list. I discussed it in a video last year and just had to bring it up again here. Wow, what a thing to exist. Can't believe that happened. Didn't go in with crazy expectations for it, but it just blew my freaking socks off. Our final title of the video is Endless Ocean Luminous. I think you could make the argument that that's one of the weirdest things Nintendo did in 2024. It's a nice fish viewing simulator, I guess. If you like looking at 3D models of fish, this very well might be the game for you. For the limited scope, you'd think it would look a little nicer. It has a pleasant vibe to it certainly, but the environments specifically look pretty barren a lot of the time. Interestingly, it has a focus on multiplayer, which can be fun actually. I did enjoy the online mode here. You swim around with random other players and look around for fish, most of which are real fish, and you also get some prehistoric fishies, some fictional fishies. Most of them though are just run-of-the-mill fishes, so if you are into marine life, you may enjoy learning some fun facts read out by a text-to-speech voice. The production values here feel pretty low. There's no voice acting, just that text-to-speech voice, and there's no real characters even. In the story mode, there's just another 3D model of a diver without a face. None of the characters have faces, so yeah, it feels a bit sterile. More of an edutainment product, I'd say, than it is a video game. I've played a little bit of the original Wii game, Endless Ocean, which has a lot more charm. Just in that brief time I played it, it has actual characters in it, a bit more of a personality. You can import your own music files, so Luminous is not quite up there. The core gameplay of just going around scanning fish and getting little points, I gotta be honest, it does kind of work on me. I do get into that. It vibes with me a little bit, but not really enough to keep going back to it for that long. I do appreciate how weird it is. I wish it was of a higher quality. It certainly has some value, but you can't argue that it's not a strange choice to make this game just in general. So I just wanted to discuss this
collection of games, one of the more bizarre collection of Nintendo games in recent memory. It seems like a lot of side projects from smaller teams. Got some passion projects in there like Emio the Smiling Man, Another Code, Recollection, quite a few remakes with Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Luigi's Mansion, Paper Mario, and then some just smaller spin-off original titles like Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, Mario and Luigi Brothership. But yeah, something about 2024 for Nintendo games just sticks in my mind. I keep coming back to thinking about these titles where Nintendo was clearing the way for the Switch 2, and in that time frame they had to get some stuff out, and we got stuff like Nintendo Championships NES Edition to kind of fill up the release schedule. Just weird to think about that was the big summer game. These Nintendo consoles later in life, they can get a little wacky, and the Switch fortunately was no different. There were some wins here, definitely some not wins, you could say, but certainly an interesting time to look back at. Now that we're in the swing of things with Switch 2, we're getting game releases quite frequently from major Nintendo series, but that was not really the case last year. No.
Thank you for joining me on this venture into the Nintendo Switch in its last full year. There's some charm to this time, you know, the calm before the storm of Switch 2. And some interesting things happened as a result of that. Very fun to look back at for sure. And that was the purpose of this video. So hopefully it provided some degree of enjoyment to you, the viewer.